So today we're going to be talking about the 5 things you need to consider before moving to Idaho, or if you've already made the decision that you should know as you get ready to relocate this way. Stay tuned. The last thing we discuss today will be the most important thing you should know before getting here. Alrighty guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel, Living in Boise, Idaho. If you haven't already, make sure you press the subscribe button, turn on notifications for more videos just like this, and go check out some of our other videos after you watch this one. We provide tons of value for those of you relocating to Idaho on a weekly basis. So let's go ahead and dive into today's top 5 things you need to know before moving to Idaho. Now, probably one of the most crucial important things that you need to know is that weather-wise, Idaho is a 4-season state. So depending on if you live in northern Idaho or southern Idaho, northern Idaho doesn't have the same kind of coverage as far as mountains and things of that nature, and it is a little more north. So they do get hit a little harder as far as snow and just weather changes, and as far as the intensity of weather itself. So when it's snowing and hailing outside out there in the northern side, it is hitting a lot harder than it is in the southern side. So northern, more Coeur d'Alene and those areas, Coeur d'Alene and surrounding areas, and then in southern Idaho around Boise and those areas, it's a lot less intense. So you're going to have a little softer snow, you're going to have softer hail, and it's just not as intensified as it is in northern Idaho. Now that is a huge plus, especially if you love to make sure that you can travel to work or travel to the grocery store and not have to worry about spinning out 15 times, which it still does happen in southern Idaho. You just have to be cautious, and you do want to expect and plan for that. Now, as far as the rest of the seasons, for summer, fall, and spring, those are all really gorgeous times. It's just a great time to be outside because you can still do the things that you love to do as far as outdoor recreations, outside of maybe like swimming in a decent temperature during the spring and fall time. But even during spring and fall, it tends to get a little warmer. So it's about 60 degrees right now in the month of April. And now I'm not going to say it's like this consistently, because I will say Idaho is notorious for having some of the most bipolar weather there is known to man. So you cannot plan your days in advance, because sometimes, just like a flip of a switch, it'll just change up on you. So that is a huge thing to consider before moving to Idaho. Are you okay with an intense winter or pretty hot summers and things of that nature? Now, the next thing you need to know, there's a lot of nicknames within Idaho. So some of the locals tend to call different areas different things, right? So for example, if you are headed to Boise or surrounding areas, that is called the Treasure Valley. The reason why they call it the Treasure Valley is back in the day, there was someone that discovered this portion of Idaho, and they decided that the amount of resources it had as far as the natural beauty, the water, and just the trees and the greens and everything Idaho in this specific area, which should be popping up on the screen now. So this area specifically is named the Treasure Valley because he thought it was so treacherous, it had so much to offer, that he came up with the nickname the Treasure Valley. And ever since then, that is now what the Treasure Valley stands for. Or there's also the other nickname that there is in place, which is the City of Trees. So basically, there's a story about someone, a group that was traveling through the Oregon Trail, and they came upon the Boise River, and they kept on saying the trees, and it became the City of Trees. So those are some of the nicknames that are a little popular around here. So when people are talking about the City of Trees or the Treasure Valley, you can kind of put as far as the location of those nicknames specifically. Now, both those nicknames are more related towards southwestern Idaho, because that's where Boise, which is the capital of Idaho, is located. So those surrounding areas, those are the nicknames that you will hear quite often. Now, there are other nicknames, some appropriate, some a little funny, some inappropriate. Whatever you deem appropriate or not is going to be heard as well, so you can dictate what you want to call different areas within Idaho. But as far as popularity and commonality, those are different things that a lot of people call those areas. All right, guys, the next thing we're going to talk about is renting or buying in the state of Idaho. And before we dive into this, I do want to put out there, I am a licensed real estate agent in the state of Idaho, and I would love to help you guys with your home buying needs as much as I love making these videos for you guys. So here is my number popping up on the screen. That is my personal cell phone and email. I am the one that answers all calls, text messages, and emails, so don't hesitate to reach out. And as always, I always ask my viewers to leave a comment of where you're reaching out from or where you're tuning in from, so we know where our audience is coming from. So without further ado, let's dive a little more deeper into the housing market as far as buying and renting in Idaho. Now, as far as buying, Idaho is one of the most notorious places for people owning homes in the state of Idaho. Now, a lot of people purchase their homes and hold it, right? Especially after COVID, right? We had those amazing interest rates. Some people have a 2.25, some people did buy downs and got a 1.75, and some people have even 3% interest rates, which is still amazing, especially compared to today's market. Now, however, I will say after COVID, we did see a huge adjustment in Idaho. Now, I'm not saying there was a 50% drop or flash sale or anything like that, right? But prices did drop a little bit as the interest rate continued to climb, which is now better for you, the buyer, or people relocating this way, because you can actually afford the price of the house. And as things get better with interest rates, you can just refinance. And I'm sure you've heard this bill, date the rate, marry the home, right? Marry the price, date the rate. And it 100% does resonate with people relocating this way. So for those of you that are interested in buying a home, there is a couple other things that you should know as well. So as far as inventory, it is very limited here. As I said, a lot of people own their homes and they do not sell it. They want to hold on to them forever. Some people are just wanting to rent it and get out, which we will talk about as well later here in a second. But as far as home ownership, they are trying to get more and more homes built, and they are building them as fast as people are relocating, if not a little slower, because so many people are choosing to relocate to the state of Idaho. So with that being said, it isn't difficult to purchase a home, but prices will start to see an uptake here soon as interest rates get a little better and the more people relocate and the less supply we have. So supply and demand is definitely a factor here. Now, I will add to that, there is not COVID craziness where you have 62 offers on a property anymore, right? That doesn't exist. It's not a thing, thankfully, which is great for you. However, there may still be competition. If the home is in great condition and the price is reasonable, then you may have a couple offers to compete against. However, that may change as well. So we don't know what the future beholds, but if you do love a home, I recommend you get the information, which you can book a Zoom call with me so we can make sure that we have a tailored plan for you specifically as far as purchasing a home in the state of Idaho. So now on the renting side, renting is actually becoming a problem in Idaho, because as interest rates are coming up and more investors are purchasing properties, especially the big banks, you're starting to see a lot more cost, a lot more expenses. It's getting a lot more expensive to rent in general in the state of Idaho. So if you're looking to rent, I would do your best to stay up to date with the Zillow.com, but it is getting a lot more expensive to rent in the state of Idaho. Next, we're going to talk about the best areas that a lot of people love to live within Idaho. So location is everything. Now, for those of you that may be a lot more into the smaller city lifestyle, to where it's not crazy like Los Angeles or Denver, but you do like, you know, to have all your amenities, your healthcare needs, your grocery stores, and just entertainment, then you may want to be looking into Southwest area, right? So you're going to have Boise, Meridian, you're going to have Star, you'll have Eagle, and those are all areas within minutes of each other. So you're talking about probably about a 20-25 minute radius from each other, and just all those areas are absolutely great. Now, maybe you like those areas, but you want to live a little further from the city, so more of a small town vibe rather than a small city, then you may want to look into Mountain Home or Emmett, which are small towns that have close access to Boise. Maybe a 35-45 minute drive to Boise, to where you can enjoy, you know, the shopping and entertainment on the weekends. However, you can enjoy the peace and quiet during the week while you're working. So now, if you want to get further isolated, they do have the Boise National Forest, and there's a bunch of homes in the mountains that you can find. However, it's just dependent on what you're looking for. I do want to add in there, me personally, I am a very sociable person. I like to go out and meet people and socialize, which is awesome because Idaho is known for its friendly people. But more than that, living closer to the city, which I personally chose to live in Meridian because it's just a fast growing city, just like Boise was, and Boise is eventually going to run out of room as far as growing out. They're going to eventually start growing up, right? So I chose Meridian because it is just on the same pace that Boise is, and it is literally bordering the city of Boise. It made the most sense for my personal needs. We would also want to tailor your buying process to what your needs are. All right, guys, so we're going to be talking about cost of living in Boise, Idaho. Now, if we're talking about someone moving from Denver, Colorado, for example, to Boise, Idaho, and their annual salary is $150,000. Well, cost of living in Boise is 2.5% lower, and then housing in Boise is also cheaper. Now, as far as national average, up here you'll see it says 8% national, higher than national average. And that's strictly due to housing, right? So like I said earlier in the video, housing is just one of those things where supply and demand, and as there is more and more demand and less housing, it's becoming more and more expensive. So as far as other things though, for utilities and groceries, so day-to-day things, it's a lot cheaper. So as we dive right here, we're going to scroll down a little bit so we could show you guys a little bit more. Now when we're talking about overall as far as cost of living, it says it is 8% more expensive to live in Boise, Idaho. Housing is 26% more expensive. Utilities are 20% less expensive. Groceries 4% less than average, and then transportation is a little more expensive. Now here's the breakdown, right? This is specifically based off of Boise, Idaho itself, right? So if we were to look at maybe some of the surrounding cities, this is overall going to change significantly, especially the housing aspect, because as I've stated earlier in the video, Boise, Idaho is just one of the most populated areas, and they're literally running out of width and gonna soon have to start building up. So once that starts to happen, we're gonna also still see the housing is getting worse and worse. But as far as outside, so more suburbs, if that's what you're wanting to do, where this median home price is in the 400s to lower 500s, the rent is probably going to be about the same still, but the home price would definitely come down in the suburbs. When you're looking at that aspect, maybe living in the suburbs makes more sense for you and your family's needs, which is why I would say that we need to hop on a Zoom call or phone call so we can give you guys tailored advice as far as where you should be looking. But as far as energy bills, you're looking at $141 a month, phone bill $152 a month, and then gas is $3.88 a gallon, which is awesome, right? Because for people that are coming from California, this may be $600 a month, and this is actually $6 a gallon. So there's definitely a lot of differences as far as where you're saving money, especially on property and income taxes. That's going to be significantly lower than the national average as well. So there's a lot of different avenues where things are a little more expensive, which specifically in this scenario we're talking about housing in Boise, Idaho. But outside of that, you're saving money on most things, not including the transportation as statistic here as well. So with that being said, cost of living in Idaho is actually much lower. Now in Boise, Idaho specifically, not necessarily the case, but in the surrounding suburbs and even urban areas, you're going to see a huge difference in the numbers that we're seeing right here. So with that being said, guys, that is an idea of what cost of living in Boise, Idaho looks like. Now as far as Idaho in general, just these numbers are not going to be consistent across the board. But as far as expense, Boise, Idaho is definitely one of the more expensive cities to live in. All right, guys, so that wraps up the cost of living in the state of Idaho. Now, before I let you guys go, I am going to reiterate, I am a licensed real estate agent in the state of Idaho. And if relocating to Idaho is something that you're looking to do in your future, whether it's now or a year or 2 years from now, popping back up on the bottom of the screen is going to be my phone number and email again. Make sure you write it down or shoot me a text now or give me a call right after this video ends. Or if you need more information on more things that I have to do with Idaho, go check out the other videos on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to press subscribe, turn on notifications for more videos just like this on a weekly basis. This has been another great episode. See you guys on the next one.